This is Sean Conrad of SeanConrad.com. So, what do you do when you get a phone call from a recruiter? You're trying to get a job in IT, whether it's coding, front end development, back end development, design, graphic design, and you're trying to work for a company as a contractor or eventually trying to go perm. And you get a call from a recruiter who's seen your resume on LinkedIn or Indeed or something like that. They give you a call. How do you deal with them? What's the best way to deal with them? I'm going to cover some of those things right now. What I think is important to know and to really understand is the difference between a recruiter and the employer. Sometimes you get a call from a recruiter and you feel like you're talking to the employer, right? And if you do really well with this recruiter, they'll hire you. But that's not exactly it. You want to do well, but they're not the employer. They are not hiring you. You have to make it past the employer. So with a recruiter, the mind state that you want to have is tell me about the job. What is the job description? Understanding if it fits you, right? And and seeing, how far it is as a commute. Is it remote? How do you negotiate pay? One thing that I've learned in the past is regarding pay, we seem to naturally be a little bit shy about talking about pay. But we need to get it out the way. If somebody can't talk to you about pay and how you get paid and how much, they're probably not a good fit for you anyway. Okay? So you want to talk about pay. How much should you be making for this potential position, right? And you have to know what people doing the same job across the country are earning at this position. You have to know what your peers are earning who are at the same level or asked to do the same things you are about to be asked to do. And you can look at places like Indeed Pay. They have a section of Indeed which shows you pay. There's a lot of places where you can look at salary and what the average salary is in your city. One thing to realize is whatever number you're looking at, it's probably a little higher than that. Because remember, they're taking the average, right? So there's a few low numbers in there that went into the calculation, and that would bring that number down. So whatever number you see there in your city for what your position that you're going for would earn, you can stay right around that number or go a little higher. Okay? Now, when you're talking to the recruiter, you may say, I want $25 an hour, for example. Okay? And the recruiter may say, we can't pay that. That's the employer can't pay that. Here's something to understand. The recruiter was hired by the employer at a rate of hourly pay that is way, way, way more than $25 an hour. Okay? So, for example, you might be at a company making $25 an hour, $40 an hour, or something like that. It is likely that the recruiter is earning $200 plus an hour for you. That's how it's going to end up. So the employer has set a budget to the recruiter, right? They're paying the recruiter a certain price. And now the recruiter is basically like, hey, I'm going to cut you some of this. Like, how little can I cut you out of this money I'm getting for you to go and do this job? So you have to realize that and stand up for what you're worth. Stand up for what you're worth. If your peers are earning a certain amount, if you see that you look up these salaries and this is what they earn, and your recruiter says, oh no, they can't pay that, and they're asking you to do front end development, UX design, back end coding, You got to have 7 years experience of this. They're looking for a unicorn. If you can fit that position, you need to ask for what you're worth. And the employer knows that that is a unicorn. They're really just trying to see how much of this description can we get in a person. So when your recruiter says, hey, the employer is not looking to pay that much, you don't have to be rude, but you say, listen, this is what I'm worth. It needs to be between here and here. Okay? And stand by it. Be confident, because they're going to test you. And the minute you say, oh, boy, you'll give me $25 an hour? Well, I guess that's it. I'll take it. They're like, okay, we're going to keep the rest. We're going to keep the other $2.25 that we're making an hour. Thank you so much. That's basically what they're doing. So if they really want you and they think you can land this position based on your skills in your resume, if you say, no, that is not acceptable, I'm looking for $35 an hour or $38 an hour, and they say, no, we can't do that, you say, listen, well, thank you for calling me. There's probably another recruiter assigned to get this company some contractors, and hopefully they'll call you and be a little more reasonable with how much they cut you. Okay? So in most cases, when I've done that in the past, when it's honesty and it's not just me being greedy, right? And the recruiter says, okay, well, we can't pay that. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call back. Hey. Okay. So we can do such and such. All of a sudden they found $10 more an hour. And it's like, wait a minute. So if I would have accepted the number that they threw out at first, I would have cut myself out of $10 more an hour to take care of myself and my family and pay my bills. So understand that, know your worth, do your research, make sure you're good at what you do. Okay, if you have something on your resume, make sure you really know how to do it. You can do it with your eyes closed. And then ask for what you're worth. You should understand that when a recruiter calls you, you're going to get a call from several people, possibly. One is a person from the recruiting agency who's looking for candidates. After that, if that person sees that you have the skills that fit the job description, you're going to talk to somebody else. You'll get another phone call, and you may feel like that person works for the company, is part of the employment staff, and you're going to feel like, oh, okay, this is my interview. But it may be the recruiting account manager. So at the recruiting agency, you spoke to the first person who wants to know if your skills fit this job description and can they go to the next step. And now they're like, hey, I want to put you on with the account manager. The account manager is the person at the recruiting agency that's talking directly to the person hiring for this position. They're in touch with them almost every day, if not every day. And they're like, okay, we'll get you the right fit. Somebody who can do this, somebody who's a hard worker, somebody who has personality, somebody who really has studied their craft, X, Y. They're talking to the employer, the person who's hiring for this position, the person who has the need at the company every day, the account manager. Now you get on the phone with that person and they're going to sound like they're the employer, and you should perform well, but know that they're not the employer. They're trying to get to a point, the account manager is trying to get to a point where they can tell the employer, the person looking for new candidates at the company, hey, I found someone who's a perfect fit. That's what the account manager has to do. Because whenever they fail at this, the employer loses confidence in the whole recruiting agency. Okay? Whenever they fail at this, the employer loses confidence in the whole recruiting agency. Okay? So it's very important for the account manager to talk to you and kind of dig in. How long have you been doing this? Tell me about your process. The recruiter only knows to ask that question because the employer is going to end up asking you that. What is your process when you get into what you do, when you're doing your work? What is your research process? How do you execute? Do you draw on a whiteboard? Do you write on a napkin? Do you do everything digitally? Or do you communicate with your team members? Do you like to sit with your team members? Do you like to collaborate when you work? They're going to ask you these questions because they know the employer has tasked them with, hey, this is what I need. This is the only person we're willing to take into this company as a contractor, and then we'll see about bringing them on permanently if this all works out. So that's the account manager. Once you get past the account manager, and the account manager's like, okay, I'm going to set up an interview for you. That next interview will be with somebody from the company. Okay? So now that's when they're going to be really looking at your personality. Are you a good fit? Because the truth is, there's a bunch of people who know how to work all kinds of software and press the buttons and make the squares and triangles and circles. There's a ton of people who know how to do it. It's all on YouTube. There's a ton of people who know how to do it. They really want to find out, what kind of person are you? Are you a family person? What do you like to do with your free time? You know, and you may think, well, whoa, that's getting personal. But they just want to get a feel for you, right? So it's not an interrogation, but they want to get a feel for you. What kind of person are you? You know, do you feel like you know everything and you're the head honcho in your way or the highway? Or are you able to work and collaborate with other team members? That's what they want to know, right? So this first interview with the employer is going to be very important. Very important. Okay? If you do well in that interview, you may not be done yet. You may have another interview with someone else on the team, and that interview may even be more technical. Because if you get to the second stage of the interview with the employer, then they're considering you. You're shortlisted. You're being considered. But they need to know, do you really know your stuff? So your next interview will probably be more technical, if not face to face. Get on a whiteboard and show us how you would think this through, right? So again, I don't want to get too far down the line here. I really wanted to focus on how to deal with recruiters. And my main points are, understand who you're talking to. The recruiter is trying to see if you fit this job description. Sometimes they're sending you information and calling you, and you're not even a fit. They're hoping that you can morph into the person that could fit into this job position so that they can get their money. Whoever fills this position, they don't really care who it is. As long as this goes through, we need a candidate to land this position. That's how the recruiter is. They are going to check to see if you are a good fit, because that recruiter, the recruiter's account manager, is the one who's talking to the client, the employer. And they need to do well. They need to find good people. So just remember, when you're dealing with that recruiter, they're not the ones that are hiring you. They'll get you to the next stage if you're a good match. And stand up for what you're worth. That's very important, because once you negotiate your rate before this hire, that's it, right? So now you land the job and you're thinking, I could have made $15 more per hour. Let me call the recruiter back. No. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. It will be very difficult to renegotiate your rate. So stand up for what you're worth. If you're worth it, okay? If that's the level you're at, if your peers earn that, that's the rate. Don't let somebody talk you down, and yet they want you to do all these amazing things, the job of 3 people, okay? Because very quickly, no matter what job you land, it's going to feel wonderful in the first 2 weeks. You're willing to drive an hour and a half, you're just excited about this new position. What a blessing. But in that 3rd week, or sometimes even sooner, when you realize what it is you have to do, if you did not negotiate the proper rate, your what you're due for the job responsibilities that you have, you're not going to be happy. You are not going to be happy. That excitement will go away so fast you won't even remember it. So that's basically how to deal with recruiters when they call you, especially in the IT space. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification button, and I'm out.